Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to go into a variety of news pieces, the topic of the week, the games I played, and of course the videos of the week. We're going to go through all that, and of course we'll have timestamps and links to everything down below, and let's go ahead and start off with the news of the week. And the first bit is not so much news, but rather an update. I've heavily talked about BoardGameOfTheYear.org. There's a fantastic aggregation site that just started this past year that's been aggregating the, well, Board Game of the Year. That's at least where they're starting. I don't know where their future plans are. No affiliation on my part, just to be clear. I have talked to them via email since they've launched this thing, because I'm a huge fan of this kind of aggregation site. As much as I think it is valuable to follow content creators that resonate with your viewpoint, I think there's also a value. I don't think it's either or. I think they both complement each other nicely. I think there's also a value to having some form of aggregation data. Now, obviously, Board Game Geek exists as well, and can be helpful from the user perspective, but I like having that aggregate reviewer perspective as well, especially since games tend to enter the various life cycles at different points, and the reviewer lifecycle tends to be a little bit ahead of how quickly games filter down. But anyways, BoardGameOfTheYear.org, highly recommend checking that out. Fantastic site that will give you all that consolidated information. Earth is still coming in, knocking it out of the park with 412 points, compared to Thunderbird Vendetta, which comes in at 213 points. There's a big disparity there, but specifically over here, the reason I want to show you this is they have a fun little aggregation tool showing you the slow changes over time as the rankings have come in. So you can go ahead and drag this back to the beginning and see where things started off. Let's go ahead and play. You can start seeing, like, oh look, Earth pops up very quickly, and suddenly they add something else, and Sky Team pops up, and then Earth and the White Castle. You can see the adjustments as they continuously added people's lists to this over here. So a fun little data tool. Obviously, this is just the 2023 rankings in motion. It'd be even more fascinating to see the rankings over time, but obviously it will take time to get to that level of data. So just recommend checking out the site if you are interested in that. We have Mage Knight getting the Apocalypse Dragon expansion. I missed this last week, unfortunately, because well, I filmed my week in review before I knew about this, but why won't this refresh over here? Let's go ahead and refresh over here, try to get some actual images on the site over here, or not, we'll find out. But either way, the Mage Knight Apocalypse Dragon expansion, basically Mage has been around for quite some time, it's had a few expansions, and WizKids is bringing the Apocalypse Dragon expansion to your table. So if you want some more Mage Knight content, Mage Knight is such an interesting game. I need to review it. I started diving back into it this year to finally actually put out a review on it. I feel it's one of those games that has so much breadth to it. Some games I play a few times, I review it, I move on. Well, no, sometimes I move on, sometimes I don't, but other times, other games require so much of you that, like Mage Knight, I don't know if I'll ever feel confident enough to review it, but I will at some point. I've played it enough times by now. I just feel that there's so much depth to that experience. It's one of those games I could play it 30 times and still feel that I'm not ready to review it, but I will try to review it sooner rather than later, although not with the Apocalypse Dragon expansion, at least not yet. Then we have Star Wars Villainous expand-alone characters announced by Ravensburger. We have Star Wars Villainous giving us more content for Revenge at Last. For those of you who have been following Star Wars Villainous, who have been a fan of the game, more content's coming out because, well, that's how expansions work. We have Fall of Rome maker and Undaunted Studios putting out Battalion War of the Ancients. This is coming to you from Osprey Games. I believe Osprey Games, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But they're bringing out Osprey Games. They're bringing out more games from, Fall of Rome and Undaunted Studio, and they have another game, which the art looks cool from what little we see of it so far. That's going to be coming to you from Osprey Games. We have a one-deck dungeon coming out with Relics of the Forge. We had one-deck dungeon. We had the Forest one. I don't remember what it's called. Now we have Relics of the Forge coming out. This is going to be coming in 2024, which is where we are now. But a full new size expansion with new encounters, new heroes, new bosses, and as you might have guessed it, a forge. Then we have over here, we have over on Board Game Geek, we have a thread. I mean, there's a thread on Reddit, there's a thread on Facebook, and there's a thread on Board Game Geek, but I'll link to the Board Game Geek one because I think it's full of some interesting information. But effectively, Miniature Market put out a little press release saying that they are under new ownership from Christophe Arnault and Maud Decombe. I might be mispronouncing those names, I apologize, but those are going to be the new owners of the site. Now, if you haven't been following it, Miniature Market in recent years was bought by Asmodee, which led to its own conversations around people being a little frustrated that a online game store was being owned by a huge, owner or whatever, a massive presence in the space, was also owning the places you bought board games from, and it looks like in some way, shape, or form it's no longer owned by Asmodee. Now, where it gets a little interesting, which is where I like the BGG thread, is they actually have images of the press release before and after that Miniature Market made edits to it. Effectively, the first round of the press release did mention, like, thanks for, Embracer Group and Asmodee for their part in whatever, and then subsequently that statement has been removed. So I can't tell if that's to remove, to distance Miniature Market from Asmodee or not. I do believe Christophe Arnault and Maud Decombe have been associated with Asmodee in the past, possibly. I have not done a full deep dive in this, only a loose internet searching, and loose internet searching is only as good as the well, it's not that great. It's got some information, but basically, it's a little unclear from what I can follow so far what the exact sequence of events is. Is it still owned by Asmodee? I don't believe so. It feels like two people who were associated with Asmodee now own Miniature Market. It's a little unclear, a little loose. But take it for what you will, I guess. I'm not sure if this is more of a press move or people moving away from Asmodee and then taking the reins of Miniature Market. Again, a little unclear, but there is a press release announcing new ownership of Miniature Market, and then some degree of obfuscated information, which is the tricky part to navigate here. So I'm not trying to accuse nefarious purposes, not at all. I mean, there could be nefarious purposes, I have no idea. All I'm saying is that even just the changing of the press release arguably muddies the waters, because you could argue that they're changing the press release to distance themselves from Asmodee. You could argue they're changing the press release because maybe if Christoph and Madhukum are still associated with Asmodee in any way, maybe that they, by saying thanks past tense, that implies they're not, which could be tricky. I don't know. I just don't know what's going on fully, but there's a press release, Miniature Market. Anyways, moving on from there, we have thousands of Kickstarter backers left out of pocket as Super Dungeon Explorer publisher Ninja Division files for bankruptcy. Now, there's two camps of people on this one. There are those who are disappointed that thousands more people are not going to get their games. And then there's far, far, far more people who are in the camp of, well, of course, this was the trajectory that was going on. If you didn't follow this whole entire sequence, Super Dungeon Explorer, and you can read the whole article on BoardGameWire, but basically, Ninja Division brought Super Dungeon Explorer to market. They did Kickstarters for it. They launched multiple crowdfunding campaigns fairly successfully, and then they started running into problems. Longer development times, games that weren't being delivered the way they were supposed to be, and ultimately, what started off as a very robust, very popular game that at one point, way back when, Super Dungeon Explorer, by the way, is how I found Rodney Smith Watch It Played. He had a whole playthrough series. I just got into the game. I decided to dive into it. That's literally how I found Rodney Smith way back before he was who he is today. And yeah, I mean, I didn't like Super Dungeon Explorer, but I certainly like Rodney Smith. But past that, basically, Ninja Division, for a long time now, people who have backed the game have been very, very confident and clear that they are unfortunately not getting the game that they backed. This is just the kind of official, you know, the writing on the wall, all the projections, all the assumptions are just being validated at this point. So, as much as this is bad news, it's kind of like, well, it's going to get all morbid. I mean, let's go morbid. It's kind of like, you know, if your grandma's on your deathbed and you know she's been dying for 7 years and you've just been waiting for that final moment. That's kind of where this is. It's not a surprise to most people who have been following it. It's just the, it was bound to happen and it finally happened. And then lastly, sorry for the morbid part, lastly, we have Stonemaier Games. They put out their 2023 behind-the-scenes stakeholder report. One of the things I've always valued about Stonemaier Games is just the way Jamie interacts with the community, specifically the multiple fronts he has, from his blog, from his YouTube channel, from the Facebook live streams, all the various contents he has. And one of those pieces of content, one of the many pieces of content, is his general yearly stakeholder, distribution, where he talks about everything. He talks about the people working with his company, what the Stonemaier titles are at, how things have gone in general across the board, what the total revenue is this year, how it's changed from last year. He talks about it. He's just fully transparent about all their numbers, and it's all. I always find it eye-opening and enlightening to see through. And he talks about different things. He talks about how even though they brought in $16 million worth of 16 million revenue last year, they still had points where they were short on cash because at the end of the day, cash is king. Cash flow is king. And the idea that just because you have a lot of revenue, you're inherently always flush with cash, that's not always true. Very often you have to do things like print 100,000 copies of Wormspan, and you need to pay for that with something. And so there are times when cash is tight, even when you have a lot of revenue coming in. So again, I appreciate that general openness and transparency. So Stonemaier Games. In fact, we'll be talking about Stonemaier Games later in this video because this is my last piece of news, which means it's time to move to the topic of the week. Now, the topic of the week, we actually do have a topic of the week this week based on one of the videos I did this past week on the channel. Specifically, I did a video on top 10 publishers to buy for, which was a clever title that didn't always land the way I hoped it would. Anyways, we'll get to that later. But point is, the topic of the week, the video of the week that I did, or one of the videos this past week that I did, was top 10 publishers who have built a loyal audience. That was effectively the goal. I tried being clever with the title, but the goal was top 10 publishers who have built a loyal audience. And as makes sense with a subject like this, I had a lot of people who watched the video, appreciated the video, and therefore a lot of people who were like, but what about publisher X, Y, and Z? Because they wanted their own publishers who they're loyal to, who they're fans of. They wanted those publishers in the mix as well. And so I had a ton of comments from people who pointed out a lot of other companies that I'm going to go ahead and name a follow-up 10. Now, to be clear, this follow-up 10 is a mix of few things, because some of these I think should have been on the first list and were just oversights on my part in terms of trying to think through the companies that I felt had the most loyal followings. And the others are runner-ups. So it's a bit of a mix. They intersperse within the list. Number one specifically, is one that absolutely should have been on the other list. It arguably should have been close to the very top of the other list as far as the most loyal followings. But let's go ahead and start with number 10. So I'm just going to do a very quick the top 10 follow-up, so to speak, of publishers who have a very loyal following. Starting with number 10, which is Gamelin Games. Gamelin Games would not have made my initial 10 cut, but it is one that they definitely do have a loyal following. I think it's the reason they're a little lower down for me, especially if you track the various successes of the Tiny Epic series. I don't think they clearly have all-in backers on everything. I think there are some that do incredibly well, some that less so. I don't think people are always all in. I think some segment of their population, of their followers, are always all in, but not as much as I would normally think. So they definitely are a publisher that I included for the second round picks, but not one I would have put in the first one. Also, I should note, a lot of these notes and opinions are subjective, which is the way this works. Coming in at number 9, we have Roxley Games. Roxley puts out some of the best produced games on the market. For whatever reason, I don't have the same sense of, again, publisher loyalty that with Roxley as I do with some other companies, but they are a fantastic company that for sure, I can tell you at the very least myself, whenever they put out a game, I'm paying attention at the very least because it's going to look beautiful, arguably it's going to play well, and it's a game that's likely worth owning. Coming in at number 8, we have Mind Clash Games. It's funny, a very long time ago, I did another video on some sort of top 10 publishers video. I don't remember what it was, but what I remember is Mind Clash was a publisher that so many people commented on that video as well as this video. Mind Clash was easily one of the most commented people who commented companies that I missed, so to speak. And to that end, they have to be on these lists. Again, I, for whatever reason, don't have that same perception of them, but I think that just the fact that they were one of the most commented this time and last time says something in its own right, that Mind Clash has an incredibly loyal following of people who are just there for whatever they put out. Coming in at number 7, we have Steamforged Games. Steamforged Games, now make no mistake, as a company, I love Steamforged Games. I'm a huge fan of the people who work there. I generally am a fan of the games they put out. But again, for whatever sense, I don't have that same sense of customer all-in loyalty that I do for some other companies. Definitely earned their place on a follow-up list, but I still don't think I would have put them on the main list. Coming in at number 6, we have Flatout Games. Again, another company that generally, where they have a very consistent type of game they put out, and they usually have a very consistent group of backers who are there to back those games. Something that was actually noted on the video is a lot of people said this feels like a Kickstarter list or a crowdfunding list, and to a certain extent it is, although there definitely are retail presence and retail publishers there. And again, one of the ones I left out definitely as a retail publisher should be there. But Flatout Games, they definitely have their audience. They definitely have a big fan base for the types of games they put out. After the success of Calico, of Cascadia, again, all that makes sense. Coming in at number 5, we have Fantasia Games. Fantasia Games, which does not have a ton of games under the belt yet, but between Endless Winter, between Unconscious Mind, and between the various other titles they have coming, and/or their offshoot publisher Pika Games with Flow, at the very least for myself, they've gone from 0 to 60, being a publisher who didn't exist, to a publisher that anything they put out, I'll be paying attention to. At number 4, we have Button Shy Games. Button Shy ones, again, a lot of people comment on Button Shy. I got one particular comment that said you either haven't heard of them yet or you own 34 of them. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I do agree Button Shy is one that has a very quick following for the types of games they put out. I do find that, like Gamelin Games before, I do find lots of people fall into that very selective camp of picking specific Button Shy games that work for them, but nonetheless, they definitely do have a loyal following. Now, the top three on this list are where we start going into publishers that I didn't think of, that I do think may have been eligible for the top 10. Obviously, they have to bump things out. Now, I'm not going to rearrange the original top 10, but I will say these 3 are definite oversights that I do think their followings are passionate enough that I do think that they might well have a presence. And again, some of this is the fact that the blind spots that I think I was more focused on crowdfunding publishers. I shouldn't have been, but I think I was. And these 3 all have strong retail presences, 2 of them exclusively so. But at number 3, we have Red Raven Games. Red Raven Games, they put out a lot of retail games, they put out some crowdfunding games, but in general, anything between Ryan and Mallory Lockett, the games they put out, I think there are a ton of people who are incredibly excited for everything they do and everything they put out. They have a consistent look, a consistent feel to a degree, very different types of games, yet they managed to capture a certain essence and magic with them. I think Red Raven Games absolutely should have been a contender for that original top 10. They definitely do have a very, very passionate following, and for good reason. Coming in at number 2, we have Devere Games. Now, Devere is more of a recent one, but Devere has gone from being a publisher that just existed, they were around, and then in the past, I want to say the past like 2 or 3 years, they've really gone up a lot of people's lists. The amount of people I've heard say that when Devere puts something out, that's a must-buy or a must-pay attention to at the very least. Devere has gone from 0 to 60 very, very quickly. I want to say they've been around for years, but I really think it's the past 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, in which they've really taken it to the next step and built that following and that respect around the games they put out, because they put out consistently good titles, both in medium to heavy Euro games, a lot of small box games too. Devere's been doing a fantastic job. And then number one, that was definitely an oversight, should absolutely have been on the original list, is going to be Stonemaier games. Stonemaier games, love them or hate them, they have a following, they have a presence, similar to Command on the other list that I already had out already. They have a very, no matter what you do, there are people with strong opinions around them. There are people that love everything Jamie does. There are people that hate everything Jamie does. There are people that are there to dump all over every single game they ever put out with the reasons it's failing. And there are those that recognize that even the failures of a Stonemaier games often outsell the best sellers of other companies. Stonemaier games definitely has done a tremendous job for themselves ever since starting with crowdfunding and then moving over to retail. And again, part of that, as I said already, is the transparency, the way Jamie approaches the industry, the directness, and he's had his own like little bumps or missteps along the way, but overall just an incredible person who has done a lot in the board game space and a lot for the board game hobby. And that's our topic of the week, a little bit of a update on the last video. And with that, that's going to dive into the week in review, starting off with the games I played. Now, as usual, this is going to be a small smattering of some of the games I've played. Many of them are going to be in reviews, many of them are games I've talked about already, but a few that I have not talked about recently are going to be Neon Rain from Manny Tremblay, is going to be an upcoming title launching on Kickstarter, I believe Kickstarter, in the next several months. But it's a small little 1 or 2 player button masher game. You're either playing against somebody else and you're button mashing against each other, or you're playing against a solo enemy. But it's basically trying to give you that button mashing feeling. You're going to have a handful of cards, you're going to be playing buttons, you're going to be playing the sticks, so you're playing like the sticks and the buttons, you're trying to combo things together to be able to get your moves in. Your character has their own special ability, and then past that you're just going for various button combos and ways to grapple, block, and get into those way. It's a fun little game. I don't know, for me, I don't know if it's one that I must own or need to keep or not, but it's definitely one that I've enjoyed playing through. I think there's a fun degree of, well, the button mashing feeling, if nothing else, but then also that, great art and production from Manny Tremblay, and then overall a fun little sense of just comboing and fast-paced gameplay that can be rewarding to go through. There's also Slay the Spire. I had a chance to play Slay the Spire at GAMA last week, and it holds up. Slay the Spire is so good. It is everything I remembered it to be. I think Slay the Spire is such a fantastic game that is so fun to play. I have nothing but good things. Did I talk about Slay the Spire last week? I don't think I did, but maybe I did. But honestly, it's good enough that if I didn't, I'm comfortable talking about it again. I think Slay the Spire is a video game it's a video game turned into a board game that, well, it's a video game that was kind of like a board game, then turned into a board game. But the version that was put out does a fantastic job of pulling you into the universe. I'm not saying you should go out and spend $100 on the board game. If you're someone who falls into the camp, if you're like, why would I spend so much on the board game when I could just play the video game for far less, then you probably should just play the video game for far less. But if you're someone who is enraptured by that concept, if you want to play Slay the Spire in a tabletop format, I think this will deliver for you. And I'm sure I'll have more content on it when it comes out, for anything from gameplays to reviews, all of that stuff. And then lastly, we have Contra Banter. Contra Banter is coming to you from Skybound Games, and it's a fun little word smuggling game. The general idea is you have teams of people, and the teams have cards, words that they're trying to smuggle across to the team, but you have to kind of get a prompt for the other team. The prompt might be, what would your perfect dream house be like? And they start talking about it to your teammates, but you have to smuggle in certain keywords that may be completely out of proportion. How do you get elephant into a description of your perfect dream home? But the tricky part is you have to be careful what you do, because the other team has the chance to call out when they think you're smuggling a word across. So when you eventually manage to talk about how, oh my gosh, but it's not even like, the reason I want that room, is the reason I want the sauna is because I remember when I was going to Africa and like I was just traveling around, like I'd go on safaris and see the tigers and lions and elephants, and I'd go through all that, and then suddenly the other team has an opportunity to catch you and be like, is elephant the word you're trying to sneak in there? And so it requires clever play from both teams, and surprisingly it works fairly well. It's one of those things that could be so chaotic that you might not think it works, but I had a lot of fun with that one. I'm looking forward to covering that one when it does show up, but overall I really enjoyed Contra Banter. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Contra Banter. It was very, very fun. A lot of fun, lots of fun to play. I really enjoyed that one. That's Contra Banter coming to Skybound Games. I'm assuming I'll cover it at some point, but I don't know when, so I don't mind talking about it now, because for all I know, it might be 4 or 5 months from now. In that case, you'll probably have forgotten about this video by then. Which brings us to the week in review, the videos of the week, starting off with Saturday. Saturday, we had two videos going up. We had Dodos riding Dinos, which is from Draco Studios. I overall enjoy that one, or Testable Games. They're kind of the same place. But either way, I overall enjoy that one. I find it is a good Mario Kart, more Mario Kart than Mario Party. Mario Party is different. More Mario Kart style game. Captures the essence, the craziness, the zaniness, all of that. I do enjoy it. It's one of those games that for me it requires a specific type of time and interest to play it. So it's not one that's going to be hitting the table a lot for me, but when my kids want it, I'll definitely play it. And it's one that's always a fun game to play with a large group of players. Moving on, we had later on Saturday, we had a review for Confusing Lands. Confusing Lands is from the Tiny Box series, coming to you from, oh my gosh, can't remember the name of the publisher, I apologize, but Confusing Lands is, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. I really like it. It very much falls into the same vein as games like Sprawlopolis. I think it's a lot of fun, very satisfying. To me, it's the Sprawlopolis and Confusing Lands. They both have solo modes and two-player modes, but Sprawlopolis is, I prefer it as a solo game, and Confusing Lands I prefer it as a two-player game, but very much one of my new favorite small box games. On Sunday we had a video of 8 games if you like Carcassonne. This is a video series I do in general, basically talking about games that share similarities to other games. So if you like Carcassonne, these are 8 more games that might be for you, that capture some elements of Carcassonne to expand your horizons effectively in the board game hobby. On Monday we had 2 back and not to back, going through a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns as we usually do. There are so many crowdfunding campaigns because I missed last week that I had to push off 3 or 4, which you'll see this week instead. On Tuesday we had a Wroth review. I reviewed Wroth from Chip Theory Games. Overall enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I don't like, it might go higher. I could see it going higher. It definitely is in that prototype range where I had enough rules, questions, and interactions where I had some games of Wroth that were absolutely amazing, and then I had some games of Wroth that were very, very good. And so for right now, I'm going to give it the very, very good rating until things are more consistently in that amazing sphere. And a lot of it came down to rules, questions, interactions, some stuff that still needs to be cleaned up a bit. I do think it's a very enjoyable game, and if Chip Theory's past record is anything to go by, when they do a crowdfunding campaign, they often are showing you things that are still in progress, still being tweaked. In fact, I had some people ask me, why didn't I cover the solo or, cooperative rules? And the answer is because those are still being tweaked. I got feedback from them that they were already tweaking and adjusting certain things, and so I felt diving into it halfway didn't really make sense. It's something that I might try to dive into before the campaign is over if they have the new updates for me, but we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we can just wait till it delivers, and I'll go through it more then. That is Wroth on Tuesday. Later on Tuesday, we had a review for Gearworks. Gearworks from oh my gosh, from Kirk Dennison. I'm trying to remember the Peacekeeper Games. Gearworks from Peacekeeper Games. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed Gearworks. It's a fun little puzzle, but it's one that, for me, a few plays kind of gave me enough of a sense or feel for what the game is doing that I don't know if I was overly enraptured. There are elements of Gearworks that I really enjoyed, and elements that pulled it a bit back for me. So I still enjoyed it, but a 3 out of 5. And then lastly, on Tuesday, we had a review for Flashpoint Legacy. This is one where it's more of a first impressions than a review. I only had so much to go through. I had the first 3 scenarios. I did enjoy I like Flashpoint as a general series, and I like Flashpoint Legacy as well, but I don't know if I felt Some Legacy games really hammer home just how much it feels like a Legacy game. This one felt more like there were little procedural upgrades, at least from the first 3 scenarios. So while I enjoyed the game, and I enjoyed the Legacy elements, I really do feel I need to see more from it. I gave it a 4 out of 5, but honestly, most of that is just based on my enjoyment for Flashpoint. The Legacy elements are nice, and I do enjoy what they add, but I don't know. You always have to factor in what they add versus the extra cost and the extra rules overhead as well, and that's where I'm not as sold on them. I like them, I'm happy with them, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, you must have the Legacy version. I think Flashpoint is a good game, and I think the Legacy elements are a interesting aspect to dive into, at least based on the first 3 missions. But again, there could be more. Well, there will be more, but there could be more to the experience. On Wednesday we had a top 10 companies to buy for. This is meant to be a clever pun on top 10 companies to die for, but I said buy for instead because I thought that would be funnier. And some people I think got that, and other people were like, that's a weird title, man. And I was like, that's fair. And so I slightly edited the title to make it more clear, but I think it may have just been just as weird. So anyways, top 10 companies to buy for. That was a video of going over 10 companies that have really engendered loyalty within their community, and of course we just did a follow-up in this video itself, a follow-up of 10 more companies as well. On Thursday we had an Agemonia gameplay. This is gameplay number 5 of a series. I want to say, I think we're doing 8 gameplays, filmed gameplays. I'll be diving into it more past that, but I think there's going to be 8 filmed gameplays to go through. But either way, continuing these series of diving into Agemonia, the world of Agemonia, and the upgrading of the characters and all that. So if you want to check out that, if you want to continue to see that, that was, well, gameplay number 5. Then on Thursday we also had a live Q&A, which was missed going live last week because I was at Gamma, and the next few weeks have so much travel, it's a little insane. But either way, we had a live Q&A to go over, and then lastly on Thursday we also had a RuneScape Kingdoms unboxing. So if you want to see an unboxing of RuneScape Kingdoms Shadows of Elvarg from Steamforged Games, you can check that out. Hope to be playing that. I've been hoping to play that for the past few weeks, honestly, but I have not yet gotten a table. Then on Friday we had a month in review. We had 2 videos go up. We had a month in review going up, as well as a big box conversation. So both of those going up on the channel. The month in review for the past month for February, and then a conversation about big boxes, which you can go ahead and check that out if you want. I think it's an interesting conversation about the nature of big boxes, when they add value, and also when not so much. And that brings us to today. Today we have a few things going up. We'll have a review going up for Applejack from Stronghold Games, as well as a preview for Furylands going up on the channel as well. Furylands is going to be an upcoming big box adventure. And then next week we have a few things going up. We have GameFound versus Kickstarter by the numbers. I'll be doing a video on that, which is inspired by Leisure Games did a video, and I wanted to do a follow-up video on that. But it's going to be a complicated video to navigate as always, because I work for GameFound, so I try to be mindful of that. But either way, that's hopefully going up this week. There's a chance it goes up next week. It depends on what I manage to get done first. But either way, we have top 10 great games I don't need to own should be going up in the channel as well. This is a video of some great games that I think are great games. Genuinely great games. I have a lot of fun playing them. I recommend them. I think they're good. But for one reason or another, I don't feel the need to own these games. And I go through various reasons, anything from cost to expense to playtime to player count, things like that, as far as why these 10 games are great games, but also not in my collection. And that basically brings us to everything, which means we have the games on the table. As usual, these are the games I hope to be diving into this week. We have Requiem, Downfall of Magic, coming to you from Ludus Magnus Studios. Hope to be diving into this one, hopefully, tomorrow, this week, whatever. We have The Adventures of Conan. This is coming from Gale Force 9. It's going to be launching on GameFound, and also hope to be playing in that one. I think this is going to be a Kickstarter title, and it's going to be a GameFound title, and I hope to be diving into both of these this next week. And then we have a bunch of small box games from the Testable Studios. We have Cosmic Cow, Pachakuro, and Neuro Riders, all games I hope to be diving into. Well, we'll see. I hope to be diving into at least some of them this week. But as usual, I usually get to about half of the games I plan to whenever I do this. But I usually get to a lot of other games that I didn't plan to, so it all works out in the end. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.